Okay. Hey, this is Julie Johnson. I'm one of the founders of Integrate Network. I've got Sheri Nicholson here, who is a social worker and a local yoga teacher here in St. Louis, and she's also on our list of Integrate professionals. She's going to be here talking about her, talking with me about kind of her professional background working in social work in a pretty highly traumatized population, and also now becoming a yoga teacher after that long season working with some pretty traumatized youth in what I call resilient neighborhoods. Cher, you can go. I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Right. Good morning. Good morning. Sheri Nicholson, as Julie so graciously introduced me. My background is I started out in social working with kids in the juvenile detention center. And I kind of found my niche. I love the at-risk youth. I love the troubled teens. I somehow felt more connected to that population. You know, when you're first in social work school, you know, you're trying to figure it out. What do I want to do? I just know I want to save the world. And so you get put into different platforms to kind of feel your way if you want to do, you know, maybe policy, or if you want to do healthcare. And for some reason, no, I know the reason. It was, you know, God sent me to work with children, and I loved it ever since. I've been doing it for 12 plus years. I started out at the St. Louis City Juvenile Detention Center, the 22nd Judicial, and within the 22nd Judicial Court System here in St. Louis, Missouri, and working one-on-one with kids that range from truancy problems, skipping school, maybe breaking in cars, to actual kids that committed murders or sell drugs or in the sex working industry. So I would get these faces all the time, like, wow, you work with, you know, those kids. How do you do that? Those kids are hard. No one wants to be bothered with them. And I just always figured out, like, why do people kind of shy away from kids that seem to be difficult, you know, instead of looking at the underlying issues. And so throughout my years of practice with youth, going in and out of different juvenile facilities and doing therapy. And my job was basically to prep the kids while they were incarcerated. And once they get released, kind of follow them in their homes and make sure that their home is sustainable. So 90% of the time I was working with the parents to try to get the home in order. The foundation was just so wrecked. And many times my kids, once they would get released, they would come home and they would do good a couple of weeks, and then they would go back to, you know, the city. And so I always thought, why, you know, do they keep doing the same mistakes when they know they're going to get the same result? And so I started to find out that it was the foundation. You know, the home was out of order. There were some homes that maybe didn't have food or didn't have utilities, or, you know, parents were dealing with mental health issues or substance abuse issues. And so a lot of the kids had to take on roles of adults.
Right.
And it's not fair. Let kids be kids as long as they can be kids. I always tell them, I would always tell them, and still do, you are a kid for a very short amount of time. You're an adult way longer in your life than you are a kid. So try to enjoy it as much as you can. And I just wanted to bring that back to kids. I didn't want to be that type of social worker where I'm just there to get my paperwork done and then I'm gone.
Right.
Like, I really wanted to work with the kids. I had empathy. I had sympathy. You know, I could relate. And being a mother as well, you know, I always would tend to say my kids, those are my boys and those are my girls. And when I found yoga for myself, it just was like an aha moment.
Right.
I was I was going through, as you say, compassion fatigue. I did it for 12 years, like really in the streets. I was attached to the gang prevention unit. So I dealt with a lot of heavy, hard issues. And it took a toll on me. And even though I was on autopilot, I felt okay. To me, my body wasn't, and my body would break down. And so I wanted to find alternative ways to mental health, physical health, just well-being for myself, and to not be part of this medication. I just didn't want to be a person that was just totally on medication to regulate my.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw a ad for hot yoga. That's where I started out in hot yoga, and everyone looked at me like, hot yoga.
But it makes sense though. I think for for like the extreme environment you had been in for so long, it probably matched the intensity. The hot yoga matched the intensity.
I agree.
And like the nervous system intensity to what you were experiencing. So you probably really liked it. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I did. Trust me, I was kicking and screaming probably the first 2 weeks. I was like, what did I sign up for? But after a while, I felt changes in my body. I felt changes like in my heart. I felt changes in just how I was thinking, how I was processing. I didn't bring my work home.
Right.
I didn't carry it, such a heavy load emotionally. And I'm just so thankful for Bikram yoga, because it's so hot. You can't do nothing but think internally. And just the whole physical aspect of it, I never really paid attention to, because I was so focused on just calming down my mind, just turning off my to-do list in my head.
Right.
And go to class some days, I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I send this out, make sure I do this email, see this kid, make sure And after a while, it was like, no, this is for you. Take these 90 minutes for you. And I would do 90 minutes classes 4 days a week. Yeah, my body craved it. Like after a while, I swear my body would drive itself to the studio, because it wanted that. Like it got to a point where I would force myself to block that time out in my calendar, and there was nothing that I could do in those 90 minutes.
Right.
Just to say, take 90 minutes for yourself.
Right.
Instead of saying an hour and a half, just take 90 minutes. And a lot of people can't even wrap that around their heads. They'll say, oh no, I got to get my phone, or I can't, I got to be connected to something. And so to be disconnected for 90 minutes was very liberating. I can tell you it was, because it gave me a chance to come back to me, to follow what it is that I want to do. And I wanted to help kids. And that's when I had my aha moment in Savasana. I just said, you know what? This made me feel so amazing. This is what my kids are missing. This is what they're missing. They don't know how to just listen to their inner self. They don't know about self-love. They don't know. It's just the fight or flight. There's no processing of thinking, no critical thinking skills, no conflict resolution skills. And just don't worry about the physical posing to look like what you see on television or on the internet, but just the mindfulness part is what had me hooked. And I said, I want to go out and I want to teach kids this. I still want to be a social worker, but I want to be a yoga instructor and a mindfulness guru because this is what the kids need. They don't know how to self-regulate at all. Those skills are lost because in society, we put our kids in an educational system where we have these set things of what they need to learn, the long list before you graduate. And so kids are so used to rules. You can't do this, and a lot of them, instead of saying, okay, this is just a part of society, how do I play a role in this? A lot of them become defiant. I don't want to do this because them saying, I don't want to do this, is their way of asserting their authority.
Right.
And it would tend to be in negative ways. And
Right.
so I wanted to be able to show kids how to express themselves in a more positive way, get their message out. Because I'm telling you, these kids are woke. They know more about politics, like what's going on in the world. They really pay attention. And it's funny because I read an article a couple of weeks ago saying that a lot of the kids that were born in the 1990s suffer from a lot of depression because that's when smartphones came about. And it kind of brought more of the world to the kids. Censorship was kind of lost, you know. We didn't grow up with smartphones or like internet. I know I sound dinosaurish, but we didn't grow up with that type of. And so we kind of got different skills than our kids have, you know, or learning. And I just always, you know, once I found the yoga and what it did for me, that was my calling to go out in the world and go to underserved schools, or just any school that's willing to just try this program. And right. Now I have transitioned from yoga instructor or social worker to yoga instructor, and I travel to different public and private schools teaching yoga and mindfulness. Right now I have a entire classroom that is dressed as a yoga studio at Northwest High School. It's Northwest, I feel so bad. I always say this wrong. It's called Northwest Transportation and Law, Academy of Transportation and Law.
St. Louis City Public School District. Cool.
Mm-hmm. St. Louis Public Schools. I have 11 and 12th graders. They come into the class and I teach them about the asanas. I teach them about mindfulness, different ways to cope with when they're testing, different ways to cope with the anxieties of leaving high school, transitioning into college. And I always say, these are some skills that one day you're going to be sitting in your dorm room and say, Miss Sheri taught me how to breathe better because I'm freaking out about this test. And it's funny to hear the kids say, I tried this, Miss Sheri. You know, I got up this morning and I sat on my bed and I just breathed in through my nose and I focused on my breath to start my day.
That's awesome.
And for a kid to come tell me that, I'm like, what? You guys listen to me? And so it feels good that I'm able to, that I was given the skills to show them, you know, a different way, and then add the social work aspect to it. So when I say I am super excited about this journey, I am excited to be with the Integrate Network because everyone does so much awesome work. This is my wave and I'm riding and I'm loving it.
You're doing it. So awesome. You like covered questions 1 and 2 right there. Good job. You did it, girl. Yeah. Well, I think I love how it didn't take very much for you to connect your own yoga practice to the practice of the students, you know, because I feel like in many helper like positions, you know, be a teacher or a social worker or a therapist, we tend to say, you know, well, what can help them? We don't always connect what can help us. The things that help us can also help our students. Exactly. Or our clients. You know, I think that's amazing that you were able to connect that, you know.
Because we were so, I know me, I'm super guilty of it. I just want to fix it. It's a fire. I want to put it out.
Yeah, me too.
Band-Aid on it. But
right.
What does it do? It just covers it up. It doesn't dig down deep to see why do we have this problem? Where did it come from? Mm-hmm. And what are the necessary tools that we can give this kid to help them get over that problem? So,
right.
I guess giving them a slow Band-Aid instead of just smacking the Band-Aid on immediately.
Right.
fixing the problem. So
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, our culture tends to not what's the word I'm looking for? It tends to I mean, in general, not just the schools, we tend to, want the quick fix for, in every possible way. Fortunately, our nervous systems and our bodies don't agree that way. Don't agree with that. The data does not support that. That I've
yes, yes, yes.
so, but what I always tell, even with the Fit Abilities program, what I always have told what I've always told other people who've asked about just the data we've taken is, I said, you know what? While yes, it's not a quick fix, but yoga does, at least in the Fit Abilities program, and this may not be for everybody, but we did see in our students, we did see that when yoga was implemented, though, I think I probably told you or Candace this. I don't know. I feel like I've told a lot of people this, but what we saw was the minute yoga was implemented, or the implemented in the lesson plan regularly, we saw students make the most amount of gains. Though, isn't that interesting? So, there could be good criteria to that. So I was like, but it didn't fix it. But we saw big changes, when it was introduced in a certain way. You know
And
what I
that's
mean?
a start. That's a
Yeah,
start. It's a change instead of going straight to the fix.
right.
The collect 200 and like the Monopoly game.
You
Collect.
know, you know, yeah, we saw big changes, because we were picking up for things that they didn't learn, like the internal stuff, like, oh, I have choices. You mean I don't have to go throw that, or I don't have to go throw a whole huge temper tantrum to get my communication, like I have a choice, things like that.
I say it makes them more mindful of how they treat others as well, and I think that's the most important skill set that I want to incorporate in my classrooms in each and every time. Because I get kids that they're playful, they like to hit, and I said, "There's no hitting in yoga." They
Right,
to yell at their friends or call them bad names. There's no disrespect in yoga.
right,
How the part of how it brings the harmony and how it's the love that you have for yourself is what you would exude to the world and to others, out like the namaste saying, how I honor the light and teacher student in you, and how it's
and that's interesting. That I think that's really cool. And that you said something about the self love piece. And then I'm going to segue into, this is a good segue into the question about trauma informed care. But it's interesting because a couple of our students in our program, we were talking. This is probably about a year ago. We talked about self love at some point in time, and that was that was like speaking Greek. I mean, like that whole concept was like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, what is that? I mean, these were like fourth and fifth graders, so it wasn't like outside the box. It wasn't like talking to like a kindergartner about it. But it was just something that was not. They had never taken that sort of, that wording was not in the. It was almost very threatening to a certain extent.
wow.
Yeah, for some of them, just because it was vulnerability.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it,
then that's a whole nother can of worms.
yeah, I'm saying, yeah, because it's some of those, like these concepts is why actually good segue into trauma informed yoga is, like just things like that even in the typical yoga world that we have learned, like self love. I was like, some of it, like one of our students was the concept was very sort of threatening to him. It was just very vulnerable to him, So I was like, oh,
And that's the thing. You could have like scratched some underlining issues that kids don't wear on the front of their shirts. And I tell a lot of teachers that come in and visit like the classroom, because they, oh, you guys are playing, it's physical. And I was like, no, it's more than physical.
uh-huh.
It's mental. And it's more so teaching them that it's the kids don't wear a sign that says I'm being abused,
Right.
or
Yeah.
I have mental issues. I, you know, it mental health or any type of issues come in all different forms, shapes, sizes, colors, whatsoever. And I just think the underlying problem is we are so used to being able to identify things off the bat. So basically, if a kid maybe has dyslexia, or, you know, we can see that because he writes it, or he maybe read something backwards. And these are types of skills that we pick up from the books that we learn, you know, from our degrees and our certifications.
Right.
And what we don't have an eye or an ear for is just different behaviors. It could be that kid that's the quietest, sweetest, most helpful kid in your classroom that's living in a hotel and homeless, and you don't know.
Right.
Or, you know, the kid that had just gotten sexually abused the night before.
Right.
Yeah. Why, you know, he or she threw a chair across the room.
Right.
I think it's about the issue that happened, you know, the blow up in the classroom, and it's something way beyond what we see. You know, we don't have that lens. And so I usually didn't get to see what was going on until the aftermath, and until they were, you know, sentenced to so many, you know, years in detention centers or rehabilitation centers. And then once you get to really digging into the kid and their emotions, and then what's going on with the parents, and then you say, oh, aha, this is why, you know.
Yeah, that's why. You're like, you know, it took what, because I was watching I was rewatching Nadine Burke's TED Talk yesterday, actually. I saw it again. It's always one of those ones you need to go back and listen to every couple of months. But, you know, it's like, you know, she says, what the hell is in that well? You know, she goes, you got to go look in that well, you know, to see what in the hell is going on in there, you know?
Fall in, because you might. Yes. I totally agree. I just found myself working with kids that their norm was walking to the bus stop next to crack pipes, you know, or seeing a dead body and it's no big deal, you know.
Yeah.
Or seeing it on social media. Hey, did you see, you know, the man got, you know, the one kid that got shot, he was in the middle of and it's like, it's the norm to them.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
There's no feelings. They're numb. They, I saw that they didn't respect life. They didn't have dreams of growing up to becoming something. What do you want to be when you grow up? I don't plan on growing up. I'm probably going to be dead. You
right.
know, times I heard that?
Quite a bit, I bet.
It traumatized me. I didn't know. I did not realize, really did not realize that, you know, being a practitioner, I was traumatized as well.
Right. Well, yeah, secondary or vicarious trauma in that environment, day after day, year after year, it takes it with you. Okay, so next question: as a woman of color, a social worker, and a yoga teacher, what would you consider a comprehensive understanding of trauma-informed care to look like in the communities you've served in the past and future? Okay, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. You know what? I just think the best way to answer this is to think outside the box. Okay. Stop looking at the surface. Start asking kids, what happened to you? Mm-hmm. You know, how can I help you? Give them skills to talk out their own problems, kind of guide them through it. But instead of being pressing or judgmental, because some things that they share is spaceball out there. Don't get me wrong. But let them express and say what they need to say.
Right.
I pride myself on letting the kids kind of say what they need to say when they're in my environment. So if some choice words come out, it's okay. It doesn't bother me because that's how they're feeling.
Right.
And I just feel like it's my job to just show them a better way, an alternative way.
Right.
And so I always use myself as an example. I say, you know what? I get it. I know you're frustrated. I know you're mad. But there's another way to do it. And have you thought about trying this way? So giving them options. They feel like they don't have options. They feel like they don't have control. And to a certain extent, you can't have all the freedom and control that you want because, of course, you're still a kid. But in the same respect, what we need to really put the lens on is thinking outside of the box and stop looking at the surface. Stop looking at everyone, just stop putting everyone in the same category. Oh, he's an African American male. He has braids in his hair, knotty hair. He's he's this, he's that. And so a lot of kids are traumatized by that. They say things like, I don't have a chance because they look at me and they're not going to give me a job because of the way that I look.
Right.
And so I think the bigger thing is just helping kids learn how to create something for themselves, how to use their intellectual property, how to be more open and let them come to you and tell you what their issues are.
Mm-hmm.
And stop trying to go for the quick fix, putting the fire out fast.
Yes. I think you hit the nail on the head. I always look at it like, these kids are still going to face adversity. Yes. You're still unfortunately you're not going to heal the trauma. Okay. But I think the hope is reflecting on what you're saying is that you're going to give them a baseline of how to face adversity without disconnecting to whatever level, be it disconnection or throwing things, be it hyperarousal or disconnection, whichever part of the spectrum, fight or flee,
Yeah. Instead of putting yourself in harm, instead of, just putting a damper on your career, your educational career, your life. I found a lot of my kids, I would visit them, give them therapy for at least 3 to 4 months while they were incarcerated. And then once they get released, it's like, I know what you taught me, but I can't because I got to do this. And it's like, how do you change that mindset? How do you tell a kid, no, don't go back and sell drugs? But he feels like he has to because he has to be the man of the house because mom doesn't have money. And so the issue is, okay, now I got to help mom. And so mom, we may get mom okay, but then there's probably grandma that lives there as well. And then there's probably an uncle that lives there as well that has an issue. And so it's like a fireball effect. Like you try to service one person, but you can't really just service one person. You have to service that entire house because the entire house is this environment for this kid.
Right.
So me going to visit this kid for 3 months, giving him all these wonderful skills went down because he had to go back to an environment where the adults weren't being adults.
Right.
Or you have issues where the adults are being adults, but they just can't make ends meet. And so they feel they need to do that. And finding alternative ways to supporting the families is a big deal. And I know it's hard for teachers, social workers, practitioners, everyone across the board. Like, I can't handle a kid and his entire family. It's unreal. It's just how it's set up. It's rare that you see therapists that will do the entire family, entire extended family who's ever under the same roof, unless everyone is willing to go, do that type of therapy. But it's not rare. When we get kids in these facilities, we're working with those children. And then when the parents come, we're just relaying messages to the parents of what we've done with the kid. Now, what I would like to have done differently is to work with the parent and kid together at the same time, so that the same skills that I'm inputting in the kid, the parent can pick up on them as well if they feel like they needed them or things to pick up on. So sometimes a lot of the parents was in the same situation as the kids. They didn't have that self-care. They didn't have that self-love. They're burnt out. They're tired of being an adult.
It's right. Well, yeah, because those skills, like, and that the inner strength you need to be like an attached adult, not attached, a securely attached adult. I mean, that takes a lot of a lot of doing innately, just in generally, but just especially if you've never known that, that sense of wholeness to like just feel like the biological age that you are inside of yourself. I mean, that's it's a lot if you've never had that modeled before you, generation.
Right. We have to really tune into these families. The whole family has probably experienced trauma.
Intergenerational trauma still.
Generation from generation, it's they live in, it's their neighborhood. They're a product of their neighborhoods. They can't afford to move to anywhere better, and they're just there. And so when a kid says, I hear gunshots all night long, and it's music to the ears, I'm used to hearing that.
Right.
For some kids, they don't hear that. They don't know that. They just may have a dad that has an alcohol problem, and that's his issue.
Right.
So it's more so to be more comprehensive, especially working with, children of color. Really think outside the box and look at the bigger picture. Where did this kid come from?
Right.
There's, it's bigger than what you see sitting in that desk in front of you in the classroom.
Right. Well, yeah, it's what do they say? I can't remember who the original quote is, but it's not, like you said, it's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you.
What happened to you.
Yeah. Exactly.
That was through Alive and Well. Yeah, I think I remember from that. It's not about, what's wrong with you. It's like, what happened?
What happened to you? Absolutely. That's another one of those questions that can, depending on who you ask, depending on the child you ask, can be very freeing and also very, very threatening, because that can just emotionally bring up lots of things. So we've realized, you don't think that way because you're like, oh, that would be like a release, right? But for some of them, it's just very
brings up those feelings. It'll
to them.
The memory alone is like they're reliving it.
Yeah, exactly. It's why I was like, yep. Yeah, it can be a very overwhelming question to ask, but I mean, it's worth asking for sure, but it can be. So
just as a society, we forget to ask that because we're so used to saying what's wrong because we want to fix it.
Right. and we can't fix it. You can't fix it, so
I need to know what happened so I can say, oh, okay, I might not want to clap when I, say, when I need your attention because you're shouting, or I might not want to walk behind you and put my hands on you.
Right.
Because, you experienced trauma. So, like you said, it's very, you don't know.
No, it is. Yeah.
What happened.
It is. I was really surprised when I have asked that before, just the amount of just the emotional responses I've gotten from multiple students. It's just a very, and some adults that we've asked that question. It's a very, I mean, it's obviously it's worth asking, but it's definitely a mixed response via people who just feel like a release from it or like an overwhelm, an emotional.
When it was first asked to me in that type of form, it made me think like, oh my God, I know what happened. Ding.
Yeah.
What happened? That's why.
Yes.
No, I was in trauma. I was, affected.
Right.
I was helping kids. I was working with kids, but I didn't know, going into these homes, going into these neighborhoods, like I would hear gunshots walking, standing on the doorstep.
Right.
And my mom was like, how do you do that job? How do you go to these homes and, by yourself and I know because I was passionate about it. It was what I wanted to do. And I never, ever, ever once said, I'm scared to go here, or I don't want to go here because these kids live here. Because to me, it was showing them, if I'm scared to come to your neighborhood, then it definitely isn't good for you if I'm scared to come. And I never saw anything as being a threat or a danger. I just wanted to help.
Right. I see that. So on that note, so you have mentioned, you mentioned earlier, you have experienced a good amount of compassion fatigue.
Yeah.
point before. How have you learned in like the role that you're in now in this yoga teacher role to prevent this from happening, or how to, if you can, because sometimes I think you just do, but like, or how to minimize it, the impact of it?
Yeah, it's definitely important to keep your practice, keep your routine. And I started teaching in the classrooms last year, and I started to notice that I would teach more. Being a yoga instructor is hard. You teach more, but you kind of lose your personal practice.
Right.
And so I would speak to other yoga instructors that I would say, that's in the same industry that's teaching kids. And I'll say, how do you find a balance? Did you see that your personal practice lessened? And some says yes, some said, some not as much as I used to. I do not go as much as I used to, but what I have found is more meditation and mindfulness exercise. So I love to go onto Pinterest and find little how to make like homemade mindfulness toys, because I like to play with them first, of course, and then incorporate them in my classroom. Like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to try this with my kids. And so it made me more mindful and more aware of how to take care of myself. It made me more aware of, if it can't be done, you can't control everything, and some things are out of your control, and it's okay.
Right.
It gave me more confidence to assert my choices. If I can't make a meeting, or if I just can't get there, then guess what? I just can't get there. It's okay. We can reschedule. It's no big deal.
Okay.
And so it is very important to stay in a network of therapists. So let me tell you about my other found is the somatic therapy, the massage.
Oh.
Am I saying it right?
Somatic experiencing therapy?
Yes.
Okay. With Carrie?
Yes.
Give Carrie some love. I was like,
shout out to Carrie.
She just started her Facebook page the other day, so that's why I was like, she's got her Facebook page. All right, yeah.
Yeah. So just learning, different ways of making sure that I'm okay. Because if I'm not okay, I can't take care of everyone else. What made me think that I could take care of everyone else and I'm not okay?
Right.
So my first priority every time I get up is make sure you're okay. Some days will be good, some days not, but just make sure you have that foundation. And so through my mindfulness, through, meditation, I get it done for myself.
Good. Awesome. Good job. That's fantastic. I think tapping into your own inner world before going to tap into other people, or helping facilitate people tapping into their own inner world, whatever it is, whether you do yoga or whatever, mindfulness in schools, whatever it is, you got to make sure that, your nervous system, you're anchored, to be able to deal with whatever they're dealing with,
You have to have patience. Don't think everyone doesn't want to do yoga when they come to your classroom.
Oh, that's for sure.
You have some that they will hurt your feelings. They don't care. I don't like this. This is stupid. Why are we doing this? And so you have to find your resilience in it as well. It's not a walk. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, we have a great time and everyone is on board. We have our good days and we have our bad days. But I found that creativity. I love music. So I love to incorporate music into my practice and my classes. And so I like to incorporate the music that they like. So it may not be yoga music, but it's something that they can relate to. And it's sort of like a give take. I'm going to give them a little bit of what they like, and we're going to play. And I'm going to sneak mindfulness in, and before you even know it, you're doing it.
You hit it. You take in what they like, and then you embed a little bit of yours. That I think is the hallmark of trauma-informed teaching anything, whether it's yoga, school, whatever, is you find what the anchor is for them to keep them connected, and then you build on that foundation.
Exactly.
That's the
the
hallmark
of the classroom. Hey, what are you guys into today? You want to try inversions? What's inversions? Headstands. We're going to try headstands. I'm going to show you how to do a headstand. Even if you don't think you can do one, I bet you will do one at the end of the day. And I'm telling you, each and every kid, from the smallest to the youngest to the oldest, will want to try it because I made it look cool.
Right.
I didn't, and then a lot of them see me. I'm a semi plus size woman. And so when they see me, they like, if she could do it, I know I could do it. And so showing them how you can do these yoga poses and incorporate blocks and straps, and you can look like, if that's what you want, the person that's on the screen who has their twisted up like a pretzel or whatever. You can still do that, because I get kids that say a lot, I want to do this certain pose, or I want to look like this certain pose. And I say, well, do it. And they'll do the pose, maybe like a dancer pose or something like that. And then I said, okay, so how do you feel? I don't think I did it like that person. Why do you want to do it like that person? I think you did it like yourself. And right. I like the way you did it yourself. Right. And so a lot of them have that aha moment, like, I can't believe I did it. I didn't have to look like that person. It's not about image. It's about self.
Right.
Just teaching kids to look at themselves.
Yeah. Absolutely. Keep going. I was just agreeing with you.
Right, yeah. Just it teaches them to look at themselves, and just in that, that's what I believe helped them to be better persons to other people.
Right.
I want to treat you, Julie, like how I treat myself.
Right.
And I have a good time with myself. So last time you was together, we had a good time. And
we had a good time. We did. We had a great time. And I think you hit a good point, is that the headstand was, that was the anchor to get them in. I would look cool, I would do something cool and fun with, whatever. But then you're also sipping in your piece. Well, how did you, how did you feel in that position? Like just going to that inward attention, that there's an inner world at all, that there's something inside at all, like, or as one of my students has said, like, I didn't even know there's a self at all. What is a self? You know what I mean? Like, she's in high school, so a little higher, but like, prime example, you don't know there's a self. You don't know that there's someone in there, that there's a whole world in there that we have to explore, because survival, you're just trying to keep the organism alive,
Like, it's the thing, they don't even know how to internalize just the sensations in their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell them, take your hand, place it over your heart. See if you can feel your heartbeat on your fingertips.
Right.
And a kid said, I never paid attention, to how I breathe, or how my heart beats, or to just be quiet.
Right. Well, the quiet too. I mean, it's just like, because quiet can be sometimes traumatizing to kids, but so some of our kids who who are super chatty, it's, that can be very.
Or our kids that have, behavior and mental health issues with, ADD, ADHD. That's huge now. You have the autism spectrum of kids. So yes. Our kids have more and more issues, and we as practitioners have to become more and more creative on how we deliver services, because the kids are the same.
Because they act what? They don't act the same, is that you said?
Well, I said the kids are not the same.
Oh, yeah.
Not the same. They're more. We're finding every day there's a different spectrum. There's a different diagnoses. There's all types of mental health, physical disabilities that the kids are seeing now.
Oh, absolutely. It's what Nadine said. Nadine Burke says is what they're that you're gonna have ADHD. You got all these mental health disorders. You know what I mean? And what's going on here? What's in that well? Again, but yet, even with some of those diagnoses, sometimes that well, there's still, no matter what the diagnosis, that underlying thing though is still, they're still facing, especially in, the schools you're serving, they're still facing poverty, they're still facing racial, you know, um, racial trauma. They're still dealing with, that on top of whatever this diagnosis is, that's still an underlying piece to their reality.
And here's the thing: not only that, it's a small pool of kids that I'm working with, and so once they're done with my class, they have to go out to a pool of other kids that do not have those skills that I gave them.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, I get to finally put this to work and see how it works. So if you know how to calm yourself and say, okay, I'll walk away from this, and this other kid doesn't have that skill set,
Mm-hmm.
it comes to, you'll hear it in the hallway, yelling back and forth. They're cursing out each other back and forth. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to do whatever it is in my power so that I want to be here full time, and I want this classroom open for all levels. I want all kids to be able to come in here and
Absolutely.
Funding is limited and we can only do so much, but I mean, as many grants as I can write, I will try, to stay there and expand that program as much as I can. A lot of people tend to say starting out in the high school level is like, we're done. High schoolers isn't important. I think they need it because they're getting ready to go out into the world and become adults. These are the ones that are going to be working next to me in jobs and things of that nature. And these are skills that they need, even if they didn't get it at the elementary or the middle school level. Whichever level you are, you're there. You meet the kid there.
Right. You're like, don't. God, that is such a defeatist attitude. Just like they're out there, they don't want that. We're like, yes, they need it. Like
they don't want it, but they need it.
Right. They probably don't want it, right? But they need it. They'll exactly. And some of them may end up wanting it down the line. So that's what we've seen at least.
Or they're gonna find a point in their life where it's gonna be something that's too much that they can't bear, and they're gonna remember. Let me sit for a minute.
Yeah, they have that option. They have choices again.
Choices. So
that's what they don't know. All right. What? Okay. We have maybe two more questions. What is your favorite book, podcast, or resources at the moment around trauma-informed care or yoga?
Oh, my favorite. Here's the thing. I am really big on Soulful Sundays. I'm kind of like one of those all over the world type chicks.
Yeah.
So I have a multitude of things that I like to share. I am a huge fan of Soulful Sundays on the Oprah.
Soulful Sundays, yeah.
Yeah. She had one show a couple of days ago on just 5 things to eliminate toxic people from your life, and she had Dr. Phil and just all her different therapists. So I really love just the people that she bring and how they come with just different ways of thinking.
Yes, I love it.
And just how they just become resilient in their lives. It could be from the mega movie stars to just a monk from a tribe or something like that. But just whatever they have to share, I always think is profound and it speaks to me. I love TED Talks. TED, whatever TED platform, I'm down with it. I love it. As far as books, I'm more of a self-help type book.
Okay.
But it's like a story book. So I'm into like The Year of the Yes, Shonda Rhimes. I love her book. The one about being a badass. You're a
You Are a Badass by Jen Cicero. Is that
yeah, by Jen Cicero. Yeah. And so I was just elated. Just 2 days ago, my daughter, she sent me on Snapchat of the book, and she circled like passages in the book.
Awesome.
She's a 20-year-old in college, and she was like, Mom, I found this book and it's giving me life. And I'm like, girl, that book has been out for a while, and it is.
That's great. Good job. I wish I was reading that stuff when I was 20. I was not.
Yeah, that's why I was like, these
Job.
are different. The kids are different. The kids
Yeah.
are different. And she just said, you know, I'm tired of being sad. I don't want to be sad. I want to tap into what my potential is, and I know, you know, it's something out there that
She's 20? She's 20 and says that? Yeah, it's like, good job. Good job, Cher.
right, I'll take it. Right, she blew me away when I was like, "You're reading that plus your schoolwork."
I did not talking like that when I was 20.
Yeah. So that is
I dropped.
so yeah, that is something. It was a couple of other things that I had wanted to share, and I can't think of them right now.
Those were good ones too. Did you probably caught hear Oprah's talk at the Golden Globes?
Oh, yes. So
That was one of the best things ever. I was like, you go, girl, you're doing it.
Yeah, and so I follow a lot of things that have prevalence in the world today, like the Me Too. I follow that, and just women's rights. I think the march is today, the Women's Right March here in St. Louis. Today is the 20th. Yeah.
Yeah, today it's happening. Were you gonna go to it? Obviously. No.
It's on my radar, but I can't make it. I got too much.
I know, you know, with those kinds of things, you know, I love that stuff. But there's speaking of self-care, I was like, you always have to know when to tune out, because I'm you and I'm tuned into so much of the environment that they're protesting, you know, for all pieces of it, that when it's my time out, it's on a Saturday, I'm like, I can't, it's my off day. I can't tune in today, but I support you guys.
Yes. So I too get it. Yeah.
You get it, right?
With you.
Right. I need a day off from tuning in to that level, because I was like, I tune in 5 days a week to that level.
Yeah.
On those issues within myself, you know, and in the environment that, you know, I work in. So anyway, what besides, are you still doing your self-care routine? Are you still doing hot yoga? Or are you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I actually been off for a couple of weeks because the school semester just started.
Right.
But, I actually just said yesterday, I miss my studio. I need to go back.
And you go to which one do you go to?
Clayton Yoga. Yeah.
Okay.
I started at Everybody Yoga right on South Grand, and then she closed the studio because of landlord issues. I was devastated. Because that was my studio. It was like in my home. I had grew with everyone. It was like, you know, you were used to seeing.
Yeah.
You're a thing. But one thing that I can say that I love about yoga is I go to a lot of different events. I follow Yoga Buzz events. That's actually where I received my training, through Yoga Buzz. And I get to meet cool people.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go, I meet different people that enhance what it is that I want to do in life, enhance things for me in my life. I'm very grateful for this circle that I'm in, and I just feel like it's so divine. Like it feels like I was supposed to do this years ago.
Well, and it's funny because you say that. It's good to hear you say that, because, you know, when one of the things that helped integrate, or the inception of the idea of integrate, was one day when I was at my old job, similar job to you, because I was doing in-home teaching, was I was driving through North City one day, and I was like, I just wonder if there's, multiple times throughout my first 5 years here in St. Louis, you know, I was like, is there a place where people go people go have happy hour drinks, you know, with after the office thing, where do the people that work in this environment, where do we go? Where are the people that do this? I see them, I work with them, but where do we go mingle and talk through our own stuff? And there was really no such thing, you know, which is how I one of the inceptions of the ideas of it, but and having that space to be able to discuss compassion fatigue and, best practices, it was obviously very needed across, just transdisciplinary line. So,
yeah, when I met Victoria, it was like both of our light bulbs just popped. We was like, where have you been all my life, girl? I get you. You get me. Where have you been?
Oh, I know. Well, and I think it's because so many people. I mean, St. Louis just has so much. We're addressing it. I have to say, for whatever, we do have a lot of struggle here. I said that that we are addressing. At least our grassroots initiatives are addressing. Is for all the things we have. I said we do have a lot of people that have a certain mindset, and that's cool to see. That's one thing that I love about St. Louis, and like Yoga Buzz and Integrate and all these other little things, Live and Well and other things that have come to pass.
And that's what I've noticed. Like, it's more out there now. We are paying more attention to these issues, and people are more curious about it. I get so many inboxes now about yoga. Yes.
Good for you.
Yes, I do. I get so many, just from friends on Facebook that like followed my journey when I was just practicing for myself to becoming a teacher, and they knew, I dealt with kids and just what I did in the community, being a community social worker. And they was like, girl, what are you doing? Whatever it is, I want to drink it, eat it, like sell it, because your whole everything about you has changed, even though physically it changed my body. They just said it's just something, you look happy, is something more, it's more life in you. And I'm looking like a zombie, was like dead, like what was going on? But you just never, I just didn't look outside of myself. I didn't know that I literally was just like withering away. I didn't realize it.
Because there's a lot you're dealing with. You got to be able to like release it somewhere,
Exactly.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and we'll have this up and sharing in a couple of days. That sound good?
Thank you for having me. I always appreciate you and your awesome work and the entire network. I am happy to lend whatever it is that I can.
Yeah, and we're excited. Sheri's going to be having she'll be working with Natalie Coriel, who's a psychotherapist that specializes in art and EMDR. She'll be working with her on one of our breakout sessions, doing a cool activity that we will be sharing about the next actually couple of days as well. So
come play. We're going to play, have fun, do some art, maybe sing.
It'll be April 7th from 9:30 to 2:30, but there's lots of links about that. So, but Cher's one of our breakout session presenters. So awesome! Thank you so much, Cher. Have a good one. Okay.
As well. Bye.
Okay, bye. Let's see here. Okay, stop recording. Stop.